So welcome everybody. This is the fourth, I believe, in the series, the Somatic Shift Series that we're doing with the Somatic School. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Nathan Blair. I am the founder of the Somatic School, recently I've been working on a book proposal, and a big part of what I believe that we're doing here at the Somatic School, and anyone who's training as a body-oriented coach, of which there are many in the room today, that's great, is, we're really, I think a lot of us have grown up, we've spent our lives somewhat kind of born into what I call a power over paradigm. And as that relates to the body, one of the ways that expresses itself is mind over matter, for example. And as much as that has its merits in certain moments within our lives, we can all appreciate that when in times of crisis, or when we are trying to do some sort of extraordinary feat of human accomplishment, it helps to be able to kind of have that, ability to pull us through, or kind of go a long time without sleeping or eating or something like this, if needs must. And yet I think it's pervasive throughout our whole society, right? This kind of mind over matter attitude leaves us with a relationship with the body which has lots to be desired. I think we're moving here. I think part of our contribution to a wider movement that's occurring, I think, is this shift from a power over paradigm, mind over matter, for example, towards what I'm described as a partnership paradigm. And this might be about how we come into relationship with the body, almost less as a kind of subject-object relationship, but more of a subject-subject relationship. What does it mean to really be in relationship with the intelligence, the distributed intelligence of our entire body-mind? In fact, what if we were to embrace ourselves not as a mind and a body, but rather a unified body-mind, integrated whole, and then kind of relate to the body as an aspect of the body-mind that we are. So anyway, taking us into a little bit of a deeper cut into what we're about at the Somatic School, and what the field of somatics is about in general. But here at the Somatic School, we train people to learn the skills that they need to work with the body's intelligence, the wisdom of the body, in a meaningful way within coaching sessions, both online and in person. We were the UK's first ICF-accredited somatic coach training provider. We are the world's first somatic coach training provider to be awarded the ICF Level 2 accreditation, their new Level 2 accreditation, a couple of years ago. And last year, we were the recipients of an honorable mention for the Distinguished Coach Education Provider category in the ICF's Impact Awards in 2024. So we are very proud to be there at the kind of front edge of bringing the body more wholly into the coaching space. And today we are going to be exploring the topic of presence. And so with that, I'd just like to open this up to you here, the group. Question for you all. We are going to be today exploring the topic of presence and how embodied self-awareness can enhance our coaching presence. But I'm curious to hear from you. What is presence from your perspective? What is self-awareness? And what do each of those have to do with coaching, in your opinion? So in coaching, they call that a compound question, which is 3 questions back to back. But what is presence? What is self-awareness? And what do each of these have to do with coaching? Feel free to drop that into the chat, your thoughts on that. But I'd love to also hear from some of you, hear your voices in the space. So please feel encouraged to unmute and jump in with your reflections on that. Tea is far too hot still to drink. Anybody else? Anyone got some thoughts on that? Philippe, cool. Let's have a look here. So presence, being and feeling grounded in the present moment, with any and all there might be present as to feelings, emotions, sensations. Lovely. And Astrid, be fully in the moment with body and mind. Fantastic. Cool. Yeah. Holding space, Ariane. Mihaela, presence, giving undivided attention to the present moment with the whole self. Fantastic. And what about self-awareness, and self-awareness in that, how that relates to the coaching space? Anyone thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm still thinking while I'm talking, but I'm thinking about what we've been learning on the course in terms of what's happening inside of us. Also at the same time being aware of what's happening in the coach, and also being aware of the space and what's happening in the space and the environment, and kind of being able to bring our presence to all of those elements at the same time, which takes practice. Because sometimes we might have a tendency to focus on ourselves or the other person, or jump into the other person. And it feels like a skill in itself, really, to kind of, and obviously mindfulness practices and those practices can help with it. But just, yeah, I've really appreciated learning that skill.
Nice. Thank you, Nicola. Yeah, wonderful. That expanded view of self-awareness and what we might be aware of. Self, other, environment. Well, great, brilliant. Thank you. And let's see, Tim, being aware of what's happening inside you. We're going to interoception. Great. You're teeing us up nicely for what's to come there. Interoception, emotions, thoughts, while being present to your client. And I love that word, available. That's great, Tim. Yeah, to be available to the client in the moment. And Mihaela, self-awareness, being and staying in touch with our own self, sensations, feelings, thoughts, as an extension of our presence. Nice. So there's the kind of intrinsic or implicit relationship between self-awareness and presence that I'm hearing coming through in what you're sharing. And then Sarah, finally, let's see, being aware of when, as a coach, we're reflecting on what's going on, being able to notice this and manage our state as a coach. Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, fab. So this is set us up really nicely for what's to come then. So let's dive in then, shall we? So this is the relationship between all of these dimensions here: presence, self-awareness, what we're exploring today. So like I said, Nathan, founder of the Somatic School. We spoke a little bit about the training and the ICF. And so here's what we're covering today. So we're going to be differentiating, or helping you to differentiate between conceptual and embodied self-awareness, and why it matters in coaching. Why might that distinction be interesting to us as coaches? We're going to expand your sensory intelligence through proprioception, interoception, and exteroception. And Tim's kind of given us a little bit of an introduction already to one of those on the interoception, and we're going to be exploring that together. Discover how to apply Presence Pie, a body-oriented coaching skill, to deepen your coaching presence. So today we're not just going to be learning about self-awareness and presence and embodied self-awareness and presence, but we're going to be practicing. So hope you've come ready to dive in. We're going to be having a short breakout a bit later on today, in the event, I should say, so that we can practice these. So you don't take our word for it. You're the real authority, the master teacher in the room here is your own experience, your own primary subjective experience, and that's what we're going to lean into. We're going to also be experimenting with Presence Pie, like I said, and notice its impact on your own presence and connection. So hopefully today you will be walking away with a sense of enhanced presence, but also a good idea as to how you can tap into a deeper level or sense of presence within yourself at any time, and how you can do so for the benefit of those that you serve, whether that's in coaching or elsewhere. All right, great. Sound good to everyone? Just by show of hands, just so I can get a feel for where everyone's at. Great, lovely, good stuff. So let's see. The first thing to introduce you to then is this differentiation between these two types of self-awareness. We're going to introduce you to this idea. We've got conceptual self-awareness, which may be very familiar, many of you, when we kind of break that down. What is that? And then we have here embodied self-awareness. And this term embodied self-awareness, coined by Professor of Psychology and Rosen body worker Alan Fogel in his contribution to interpersonal neurobiology, or the field of interpersonal neurobiology, But and by show of hands, who's heard of interpersonal neurobiology, or IPNB, it's sometimes referred to? Yeah, great, fab. This is an interdisciplinary field. It was pioneered by Daniel Siegel and Alan Shaw, and it seeking out the similar patterns that arise in otherwise siloed or previously separate approaches to knowledge. We're looking at how these different things, they say, coalesce, how these different findings coalesce, basically how they marry up and inform our understanding of the human experience. And what it's painting for us is a very integrated picture of the human being. So some of the fields that this includes, I'll just drop that into the chat for those of you who are present at the event today. You can have a look at that there. It includes anthropology, biology, cognitive science, computer science, developmental psychopathology, linguistics, neuroscience, systems theory, mental health, physics, psychiatry, all of these different fields, looking at where the findings kind of coalesce. It's a very fascinating field of study. Interpersonal neurobiology. Try saying that fast 5 times. But yeah, that's where Alan Fogel contributed to this field with this exploration of what is embodied self-awareness, looking at the science. And in his book Body Sense, you'll actually find a lot of the science and research that went into this definition and the distinctions between the two. So let's look at what that is. Yeah, just as a start for 10, does anyone want to give that a go? What do you think conceptual self-awareness might be? What do you think embodied self-awareness might be? Start with conceptual self-awareness. What do you think that's about? Might be about.
It's an awareness of yourself in relation to other aspects in your external environment and your own internal environment. Great,
thank you. And Tim, thanks, Claire.
Yeah, full disclosure, I'm reading Alan Fogel's book right now, so but see if I got it right. Conceptual self-awareness is more about thoughts that you're having bit distant from your body, so your emotions and interoception are not really at play when you're using your conceptual self-awareness. And when you use that, it's really a different part of your brain from embodied self-awareness.
Great, lovely. And Ariane, I saw you had your hand up. Thank you, Tim. Ariane, I saw you had a hand up and then put it down as Tim shared that. So I'm imagining that you you were going to say something similar. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything to add if you want to?
Well, pretty much we all live in our heads. Most of us live in our heads. This is where I guess 99% of the world, the first world, lives in their heads. And this is, people become aware of themselves, but they stay up there and try to think their way through the problems, which is, of course, very difficult to get solutions out of that.
Great, lovely. Thank you both, Tim. Thank you, Ariane, and thank you, Claire, as well. So great. Let's dive into this. I also see in the chat here we've got awareness of thoughts. Astrid said for conceptual self-awareness, Philippe, one of the more focused on mental, the other more physical and emotional. Great. So conceptual self-awareness is defined by Alan Fogel, thinking about the self. Embodied self-awareness, you could say, there in contrast, is feeling or experiencing the self. Conceptual self-awareness you could describe as based on linguistic and symbolic forms of expression. And embodied self-awareness would be based on sensing, feeling, and acting. Okay, so conceptual self-awareness, again, engaged in a thought process, whereas embodied self-awareness would be being in the subjective emotional present. And what we sometimes refer to at the school is primary subjective experience as well. And then conceptual self-awareness, would be abstract, transcends the present moment. So you can be in any, through conceptual self-awareness, you can kind of place yourself anywhere at all, and any place and time as well. So at any time, whether that's past, present, or future. Yeah. And then embodied self-awareness is concrete, lived in the present moment. And that's an important word. Lived in the present moment can only be experienced. You can't think a sensation. You can't kind of think often we actually find ourselves in somatic coaching, or those who are wanting to bring the body into their coaching in the early stages of somatic coaching may find that with their clients, we're doing a lot of thinking about feeling or thinking about experiencing. And there's a difference, therefore, between being in the experiential present moment and speaking from that place. And that would be more of embodied self-awareness. But these are the two. Okay, cool. Looking at this, just looking at this slide here, we can see here that these are two different modes of self-awareness, you could say, but I often like to think about them a bit like a yin yang, you know, like a yin yang symbol. You've got in the yin and the yang, you've got a dot, you know, you've got a dot of black in the white yang, and you've got a dot of white in the black yin. And that dot in each of those is a kind of like a bit of the other, you know. And I think that in conceptual self-awareness and embodied self-awareness, there's a kind of partially permeable membrane between the two. We often have a little bit of both all the time, you know, and we probably have our default. We probably have some preferences to one or the other. And through somatic work and through things like body-oriented coaching, we can learn to cultivate our embodied self-awareness. Now, so embodied self-awareness being in practice, really all about, I can just kind of, well, I'll keep that slide up actually for the sake of this. I mean, in practice, it's about perceiving our movements in relation to others and our surroundings, which has been alluded to by some of you. It's about registering the texture and the depths of our senses, and about exploring the intricacies of our emotion in relation to others in the world. And so if you think about that, that's embodied self-awareness there. Something that quite a lot of us in the modern world are perhaps less versed in. We inhabit that space less often, quite a lot of the time. But the research suggests that it can enhance our emotional regulation. Cultivating embodied self-awareness can increase our self-compassion, improve decision-making, strengthen our interpersonal boundaries. And it's and in general, it's essential for health and well-being. It promotes our overall well-being. Regular practice of embodied self-awareness supports the functioning of various bodily systems, contributing to our holistic health and overall well-being. So from that perspective, there's great value to taking time to or giving some special attention to embodied self-awareness. But just looking at this, do you have a sense of how both might be relevant within the coaching space? Because at the Somatic School, we're big advocates of sort of expand and include. We're not saying it's this, not that. We don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We need both. And so what are the gifts of each, do you think, in the coaching space, out of curiosity? What do you reckon? I'll put that down. Conceptual self-awareness. Why might that be relevant in the coaching space? Embodied self-awareness. What do you reckon?
You need the language for the client to describe the feelings and sensations in their body, and to describe what's happening in that present moment. So there's a crossover in that instance.
Yeah, lovely. The necessary link between the non-verbal and the verbal expression of that. Yeah. Language, though limited to describe exactly what we're experiencing, is the best we have available to us to kind of transmit exactly what's going on in our internal experience. Yeah, sure. Ariane, thanks, Glenn.
Yeah, I use the conceptual self-awareness first to make the client feel safe in a way, because they think a lot, and this is where they feel as soon as they can put words on it, it is easier. They can get some distance to the entire topic, and then slowly sort of like take them down the escalator from the head into the body. So starting out with the conceptual part, the thinking, as Claire just said, then moving slowly into the body, which is very often painful territory for clients.
Great, thank you, Ariane. Yeah. And an important thing to mention as well, because of course, for many people, the body is not a home, although it has every potential to be that. And that's sad that it might be that way for many, but we can be supports to them, you know, knowing what to do and what not to do in sessions to support a sense of safety as people venture into their embodied self-awareness, crucially important. So that's one of the things that we do. We put a lot of emphasis on it in body-oriented coaching here. Ariane, thank you very much for that. And Astrid, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. We also need to get aware of the limiting beliefs that are stuck somewhere in the body.
Yeah, great. Lovely. Thanks, Astrid. So wonderful. So things like beliefs, things like a sense of identity, things like the meaning we make of our experience. All of these I'm describing conceptual self-awareness right now. A vision for our future, the goals we have, all exist in the world of conceptual self-awareness. Essential for most coaching conversations, not every coaching conversation, but for a great deal of them. Embodied self-awareness is where we start to access our experience of ourselves here and now. And with that, we can begin to tap into some of the intelligence beyond the intellect as well. And that's the whole kind of our whole game when it comes to body-oriented coaching, because we're starting to access what's available in primary subjective experience. And often, whether that's a gesture, you know, a certain particular gesture that kind of, we say the body reveals, and often the body reveals our deeper truths. So a gesture, it's something as simple as a hand movement can often do that in our clients. And then we've got, of course, like as Tim mentioned earlier, a sense of what's happening inside can often give clients so much, to use a very coaching term, data about what's happening for them, their emotional landscape, their what they really think and feel about this. You know, it kind of is held there and expressed through the body. So both essential. So great. That's conceptual self-awareness and embodied self-awareness. So with that, when thinking about embodied self-awareness, how many senses do you have? This is just a pop quiz question. It's a bit of a trick question. I apologize in advance. How many senses do you think you have? Maybe just by a show of hand, fingers, digits on hands. What do you reckon? Ashford said 7. Wow, nice. 6. Felipe, okay. Dan said, yeah, 7. We got 6. We got, okay, great. Lovely. So there's actually a book I saw the other day. There's a book released. I think it speaks about something like your 32 senses. So okay, I'm very curious to have a look at that. But for the sake of today, I want to expand this out. Quite often, many people, when they think of our senses, very typically, if you ask the average person, name our senses, they'll say sight, touch, taste, smell, and hearing. Okay, the kind of 5 primary senses that we often think about. Today, we want to introduce you to not the full swath of various senses that we might have, but rather these, what we call at the Somatic School, these 3 classes of sensory perception. So great. So I'll come back to Felipe. You've got something in the chat that I'll come back to in just a moment. For now, we've got exteroception, and exteroception includes what we've just spoke about, those kind of 5 primary senses that we might often think about. Exteroception is our sense of information from outside. So when we see, when we smell, when we hear, when we taste, and when we touch, our sense perceptions of these things is taking the information from what is outside of ourselves, our external environment, let's say, and perceiving that within through our senses, via our senses. Okay, that's exteroception. Okay, so this is a class of sensory perception, which includes a number of senses. All right. Next up then, we've got interoception. So interoception is our sense of information from inside. So this would include, for example, hunger, thirst, breathing, our heartbeat, body temperature. But it would also include what's sometimes referred to as our felt sense. I wonder, perhaps this is the 6th sense that many of you were pointing to when you were holding up your digit on your other hand there. And many of you said 7, and there are many others as well. So, but this kind of felt sense is more than sensation. It's sort of like a meaningful bodily felt experience that we experience within ourselves. It's the clenching in our gut when somebody proposes something to us and says, like, we're going to be doing this, and you suddenly feel like there's something not right about that. That doesn't feel like the right course of action for us to be taking right now. You just get this kind of clench in your gut. It's the sort of that sense of like, I don't know, flutters in the heart or something when you're speaking with someone you have great chemistry with, and maybe like a potential romantic partner. You know, it could be when you bring to mind somebody who'd rather not bump into, you might feel a sense of unease. And if you bring to mind somebody you feel very fond feelings towards, you might have just a sense of like openness and lightness within. And there's this kind of whole holistic sense of certain different situations and people and places and experiences that we experience within ourselves. Interoception is improving our interoceptive ability, is increasingly researched today as an important aspect of our human experience that we often neglect and can be very beneficial for us. So that's interoception. And then finally, we've got proprioception. And I say finally, as in finally for now, we're just going to explain these 3 classes. I'll mention just 2 others before we move on. But yeah, proprioception, this is our sense of our bodies in space. So really, this is about knowing at any one time, you know, where my right hand is, you know, without looking. It's over there. You know, I have a sense of my body in space. When we move, proprioception is very much at play in helping us navigate and orient ourselves to the environment as we move ourselves and maneuver ourselves through the world. You know, so proprioception can be enhanced and refined through various movement practices, all sorts. General exercise can help, and then yoga, and then things, if you want to get even more refined, you could do things like Feldenkrais or Alexander technique and really get a very subtle and nuanced sense of our proprioceptive sense perceptions. So that's those are 3 classes. Somebody mentioned here in the chat, let's have a look, neuroception, Philippe mentioned, which is our sense of safety. So neuroception is constantly scanning our environment for cues of welcome or cues of warning, a sense of safety, general sense of safety, but you know, in the world around us and with the people we meet, or the more than human world. It might be here, a dog. Is it very cute or is it threatening? You know, our neuroception is giving us sensory input around that. And then there's nociception, for example, and that would be our sense of pain, for example. But the ones that are most relevant, I mean, neuroception is hugely relevant to coaching, but for today's event, we're not going to be exploring neuroception. We did that actually in one of the previous Somatic Shift Series events, which was the mastery and co-regulation. So if you want to check that one out, I'll give you more information about neuroception. But for now, exteroception, interoception, and proprioception. Now, if we flip that, proprioception, interoception, exteroception, the first letter of each gives us what? The first letter of each of those words spells? Yes, pi. So, which leads us on to pi. And that's what we're going to be practicing today. Not pi as such, but the acronym PIE, P-I-E, proprioception, interoception, exteroception. It's one of our body-oriented coaching skills here at the Somatic School. But before we get into that, I just want to pause for a moment. Anyone got anything that they want to, any thoughts, reflections, questions coming up for you at this point before we move on?
Yeah, just a quick one. Hi.
Hi, Sarah.
I'm just worried. I mean, this is just my curiosity, really. The neuroception doesn't, you know, I kind of feel like all interlinked. So interoception is the sense of information from inside, and you know, we're kind of scanning the environment anyway through exteroception and proprioception, you know, and neuroception. I just feel like they're all interlinked because somehow this kind of data comes from our body and kind of then comes into our minds and out. So I kind of see them as linked rather than separate. Yeah, lovely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think a big thing for us, thank you, Sarah, a big thing for us here at Somatic School is, you know, we might look at the differentiated parts, but recognize them as parts of the whole, as an interconnected whole. So you can't, in the same way that we say we can't separate our neurology, our psychology, our biology, they're all interwoven like a fabric. In the same sense, our proprioception, interoception, exteroception, all interwoven, you know? So, and especially you could say there, Sarah, that neuroception underpins it all. Our neuroception is a survival imperative. It's fundamental. And so it takes priority, and it's ever scanning, even when we sleep, in fact. So that's why we can awaken with a startle, you know, as we hear a sound. So neuroception is
always there, whether we're propriocepting, interocepting, or exterocepting at any given time. And then, yeah, they're all kind of interlinked and interwoven. So thank you, Sarah, for naming that. Important to mention. Yeah, beautiful. Great. Okay. Anyone else before we get into this? Into the practice? I guess I should mention, actually, we're just about to practice a body-oriented coaching skill. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but you can follow this link at any time. If you are interested and you need to drop off before the end of this event, you can you can book a call with one of our course consultants at the Somatic School using that link I've just dropped in there. And in fact, Alexis here, who's in, hello, Alexis.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, is also a course consultant at the Somatic School. It's lovely to see you here, Alex. So if you also want to just contact Alex directly, you're very welcome to do that. You can just ping him a message in the chat. Nice and simple. So, okay, cool. We're going to practice then presence by. First of all, I'm going to share with you a handout. So lucky you for being here live. That we'll probably share it, I guess, with follow-up email as well. Let's have a look at this. Here's a handout for you with a set of prompts. I'm going to share the screen here so you can have a look at this too. Okay, so this is our presence by, our 3 key classes of sensory perception. We've got our exteroception, interoception, and proprioception. Flip that, we've got pi. And basically what we're offering is a set of prompts. Super, super simple skill. This is like a soft skill in the body-oriented coaching skill set, but an important one nonetheless. So the prompts for proprioception might be things like, for you as coach, how am I holding myself? How am I sitting? How is my posture? Is my body aligned? Where are my feet? Okay. Interoception, how am I right now? And just checking in, tuning in, connecting with self. How am I right now? How do I experience myself in this moment? How is my breathing? Is there any tension? Am I hungry? I know for me, when I'm hungry, I'm useless to the world. If I'm coaching, that's a nightmare. If I'm hungry, good idea to have that check prior to a coaching session. For me anyway, it might be the same for you. What else do I notice when I turn my attention inward? Anything else? Is there a lingering sense of a tiff I had with my partner earlier today, or some stress from a project that I was doing just prior to the coaching session? When I become aware of that, do I have the wherewithal and the self-awareness and the capacity to park that maybe and to be fully present with this person rather than letting that kind of bleed into the session, for example, okay? Exteroception. As I bring my attention out, what do I notice? What can I see? What do I hear? What am I aware of in my surroundings? Is there anything in my environment that requires my attention? If you might notice that when we began this event, I said, I'm going to close the window. There was a lot of noise coming from some construction that's happening, and I knew it would be distracting if I left it there, so I closed the window. That's a bit of deliberate, intentional exteroception, just checking in with my environment. Is there anything that needs my attention? What do I notice? And most importantly, finally, what do I notice as I perceive this person in front of me? So now I'm putting my full attention on the client in front of me. What do I become aware of? Okay. So these are the prompts. The idea is that we might use presence pi at the very beginning of a session, but at any point that we feel we're losing presence within a coaching session too, we can do a sequence of pi. We can follow these prompts. And the order is deliberate because our proprioception is, when it comes to things like cues of welcome and cues of warning, that's a big giveaway. Are we leaned in a way that's slightly, not giving our clients enough space? Can we, if we notice our posture, might we lean back and things like that? So proprioception is a good place to start, and it also might help us get more comfortable, which is always good for us. Interoception, next up, is great. So kind of check in with ourselves before we move to exteroception, which is to then be fully with the person we're with. So look, as Sarah said, they're kind of overlapping at all times, but this is about being intentional about where we place attention as we move through that. So everyone able to download the handout there? Everyone got that? Cool, because you're going to be using that when we go into the breakout rooms. So I'm going to be setting up on breakout rooms in just a moment. And what are you going to be doing? So let's have a look. Presence pi exercise looks a bit like this. You're going to have 10 minutes in total. You're going to pick who wants to be coach and who wants to be the partner. So at the very beginning of that 10 minutes, you want to set a timer for roughly 30 seconds and just during that time, the coach and partner are going to sense the quality of the coach's presence. And when I say quality, no, this is a non-judgmental environment. I hope everyone can agree to be, as much as possible, in a kind of we're here for each other's support and learning. So when we say the quality of another's presence, we're talking less about a presence in a performative way. You know, how good is your presence, for example? It's not a value judgment. When we say quality, we're talking about the texture, the nature of the presence. Am I sensing that you're with me right now? I notice that there's a softness about you that feels that kind of draws me in and makes me feel very welcome and safe. There's a stillness about you that you know, or conversely, it could be there might be there's a lot of movement. Looks like, you know, and let's try not to kind of make too many assumptions about what's happening for someone. So we won't say necessarily like you look agitated. But if you do say something like that, just check in. Is that right with the person that you're saying? You know, do you feel it in any way? And they can let you know, yes, I am, or no, I just have a mosquito bite on the back of my leg and it's itching me. You know, so yeah, things like this. Then after that, one by one, or pick your favorite prompts from the presence pie, but go in order, P-I-E. You're just going to pick your favorite prompts, and coach, this is for you to do as a reflective process. You're literally just going to speak out loud. As you take a prompt, you're going to look at that. You're going to say, okay, I'm taking the prompt that says this, and here's what I notice. You're going to share all of that out loud, okay? And it's just, we're doing it out loud just so that the partner can be privy to what's happening for you as you take yourself through the prompts. We're only going to go one way. So when you get to the breakout, choose who wants to be coach, choose who wants to be the partner. And then at the end of that, after you've done all of that and you've made any adjustments that you need coach as a result of the awareness that you've found in this process, and just let adjustments almost happen naturally. They will organically happen as we notice, oh, I'm slumped over in a way that feels uncomfortable. And you'll notice there's a self-organizing that will happen with the body. Probably you'll straighten up or something like that if that's what feels good. At the end of that process, you're going to take the final 30 seconds in silence and just then notice again the sense of any changes in the quality of the coach's presence, and then share that with your partner. So at the beginning, I should have mentioned at the beginning, in the first 30 seconds, you're not going to share the quality of the presence then with your partner. Partner, you're not going to share it with coach. Just note it down for self, note to self. It's at the end, after the final 30 seconds, at that point, that's when you're going to discuss. For me, before presence pie, I felt my presence was like this. This is the coach speaking. I felt presence was like this, and this is what I noticed. And then afterwards, it felt like this. This is how it felt different. And then the partner can say, yeah, I noticed at the beginning, I observed this, and afterwards I observed this, just to see, as an experiment, what happens. Does that make sense to everyone? Everyone got any questions about what they're doing in the breakout? It's going to be a 10-minute breakout in total. So make sure you keep an eye on your time. Roughly 30 seconds at the beginning, just to tune in, get a sense of the coach's presence. Coach, you're going to run through presence pie. And at the end, 30 seconds, just to tune in again. And then a minute or two just to share on what you noticed. Yeah? Anyone querying what they're doing in the breakout itself? The question about the breakout? Okay, great. It sounds like it's clear for everyone here. So yeah, some people... okay, so Erin, is there anyone here who is happy to have an observer? In fact, what I'm going to do, I'm actually deliberately going to put you in groups of 3. So then you can choose, one person can actually be an observer. And because what's highly likely is that in many of your groups, you will end up in pairs anyway, because there'll be lots of people who won't join the breakouts. Rather than ask who wants to go in breakouts now, who doesn't, I'm just going to open up the breakouts. There'll be many people who don't join. You'll probably be a pair. And if you're on your own, please stay in your breakout room. I'll find you a partner as quickly as I can, but just stay in there and then we'll get you someone as quickly as we can. We'll be bringing you back with just 5 minutes at the end, just to kind of take some final questions, thoughts, reflections, and then we'll close up for the day. Cool. I'm going to open the breakout rooms now. See you back here in 10. Enjoy. All right. I love it when you bring people back from breakouts and everyone's laughing and smiling. It's always a good sign. Okay, great. So we're on our home stretch now. Actually, I can ask everyone to pop yourselves back on mute. You come back to the breakouts now, so you might still be unmuted. And so just trying to check in. Yeah, how was that for you? What did you notice? What did you observe about your coach's presence at the beginning and after? How was that?
For me, it was playful.
Playful.
That it was the most important, that we are playing with this. And that my experience was that we was really alive, that we have the space, that I can feel Sarah, and I see these small changes and very like big presence.
Beautiful. You know, isn't it fascinating how connection with self, genuine connection and contact with self, just creates so much capacity for connection with others. So it's lovely to hear that you experience play. That's our co-regulation in action there. Love that. Great. And Diana, I saw you unmute. So do you want to jump in?
I was just going to say, it was really interesting when you first come into the room and you see each other, and then you go through those things for yourself, how that connection between you through the screen in that space just develops from doing those things. It's so wonderful just to experience and see and remember.
Fantastic. Yeah, really, like in this world where we spend so much time online, it's extraordinary to notice that when we access those very sense perceptions, even in an online environment, it can create that sense of connection with self, with the other, with our environment. Feels less digital in a way. You know, it's so important, right? Kind of, and also breaks down barriers as well. It's like we feel like we're almost in the same physical space sometimes. Did you have that experience? Anyone have an experience like that? Raise your hands. Just kind of a sense of deeper connection, intimacy with self and other. Yeah, cool, wonderful. Well, I'm delighted to hear. And did anyone notice a kind of a shift in your sense of presence or the presence of, yeah, great, wonderful. Tim, do you want to share anything on that, just out of curiosity?
Yes, I was practicing with Erin, who was in a driving car and had just tuned into the program, so she missed the whole explanation. So I was kind of like, oh, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And we just went through the motions of the exercise. And for me, there was a shift in feeling my body better, feeling my presence much better. And this sort of mirrored what happened with Erin as she reflected on it. So it's very nice.
Ah, fantastic. Great. Yeah. So so you experienced that in yourself, Tim, but it was also reflected in what was shared by your partner there, that shared similar observations. Yeah. Wonderful. Fantastic, Tim. Philippe, and this will be the last one for this little round of reflections here. Philippe, go for it.
Yeah. So I was doing the experience with Diane, and I was noticing as she went through the prompts, as she was a coach, as she went through the prompt, I could feel myself going through the process as well. And as I saw her expanding and releasing that tension, I felt myself releasing that tension just as well. And this sort of co-regulation never ceases to amaze me, and how beneficial, I can only imagine how beneficial it would be, remembering my medical school, how beneficial it will be to teach these kinds of things, techniques to student doctors, so that we can not only practice this ourselves, but to teach and to use it with our patients as well. So it's an amazing process, and it's lovely to be part of it. Yeah.
Fantastic, Philippe. Yeah, wonderful. You know, Daniel Siegel refers to this as resonance circuits. There's a lot of research emerging around synchrony as well. All of these ways in which we recognize we are social animals, we are mammals, and we have these limbic systems that are wired for relating. And yet we often move through life and our working lives as if nervous systems aren't interacting in such profound ways. They are all the time. And so beautiful to see you being shaped by the other and having that experience of those shared experiences through somebody's deepening presence. You yourself have that experience. Now, one thing to mention about Presence Pie is we're not offering this as a set of prompts that you would read out to your client, but rather that you would do silently. And that wasn't obvious. For the sake of the exercise, the prompts are, helpful to speak them out loud, and that's an exploration. But when you're in your coaching sessions, of course, this is something you do silently with yourself. But as Philippe just said, whether you're speaking it out loud or not, no doubt it's shaping the experience of the person sat across from you. It's having an impact. We can be a generative presence for the people that we're sitting with. Okay, so I just want to share this with you before we wrap, and then I'm going to stay on for what I'm starting to call, that's not the right screen. I'm going to starting to call after hours. I'm going to stay on for 5 to 10 minutes afterwards just to answer some final questions. But if you want to find out more about the Somatic School, if you had a good time here today, and you'd like to have deeper experiences of this, we only have an hour. It's such a short amount of time, and you only had a 10-minute breakout. But if you'd like to have longer breakouts, lots of experiences, really learn skills to help people, support people in cultivating embodied self-awareness, but also learning to access the wisdom, the intelligence of the body in service of whatever goal or aspiration or vision that they might have for themselves, come and check us out at the Somatic School. You can also scan that and come along to our intro event. So that QR code there will take you to the registration page for our free introduction to body-oriented coaching event, where you can get all your questions answered about the course itself. So that's that. If you are keen, if you've come to this because you're thinking, I actually am really considering training as a body-oriented coach, becoming certified, then I'd encourage you to book a call with one of our course consultants. We actually have had a few transfers. So we've actually got two spaces have opened up for our May intake. We are in May, aren't we? Yeah, May intake, which starts this week. So if you'd like to jump in and nab one of those spots, you can. You actually can, and you can book that with a call with one of our course consultants, and they can help you understand if it's a fit for you. And that's really important. We only have up to 17 people on each course and each group intake cohort, and that's not many people. So we want to make sure that it is really the right course for you, because we can only have capacity for 17 per intake. Okie dokes. So thank you very much. As I mentioned then, I'm going to stay on for another 5 to 10 minutes to take any final questions, if anyone has any, or any shares that anyone wants to make. And if you've got to drop off, and thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you.
Just say thank you, and Nathan, I will remember your name. Thank you for this welcome.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thanks.
day.
Bye.
Ciao.
Yeah.
Bye.
Very sweet. Yeah, anyone got any questions that they want to throw into the mix here before we close? Like I said, 5 minutes or so. And if not, I'll stop the recording. Okay, fab. Wonderful. Take care, everyone. Bye for now. Take care.
Oh,